back to our show.
Thank you.
I'm going to get into the specifics of your book first, but also for people who know the name, they know a little about you. Let's clear up some things for them. You have this reputation as a guy who's a little too happy about progress. And all you're ever doing is citing the statistics, right? I mean, give us some of your greatest hits, like extreme poverty, right? Where has that gone, like, in the last 30 years?
Well, 200 years ago, 90% of the world lived in extreme poverty.
90%.
Now it's less than 9%.
And that changed a lot just in this century, right? Didn't we make...
Yeah, just in the last 30 years.
And, I mean,
people.
Child labor, things like that.
Child labor down, illiteracy down, maternal mortality, infant mortality, war deaths,
Right.
deaths from violent crime, violence against women, racism, laws that criminalize homosexuality, capital punishment, all of them down.
People used to shit in the street.
Yeah.
Way more, right? Wasn't that a big thing? Like, not that long ago, like 1 billion people shit in the street.
That's right. Well, and it used to be true in Europe and the United States.
What?
And several hundred years ago, their cellars were filled with human feces. People would empty their bedpans out the window. But in the poor countries, it is also way down now. There's been a huge increase in access to clean water, sanitation.
So you coined this term. I did a whole editorial about it, progressivophobia. Why is it, do you think, that people want to resist the idea of progress? It seems to me like they can't keep two thoughts in their head at the same time. That, okay, we've made great progress, and yet we still have some progress to go. I feel like they, clap themselves on the back because, like, if I think things are worse than you think they are, I'm a better person.
Yeah, there's some of that. Part of it is just sheer incredulity because the news is a highly non-random sample of the worst things that happened on Earth the day before.
Very non-random, as we found out from the Facebook whistleblower and other people.
But conventional news as well. News is what happens. And
right, but Facebook did make it worse.
They did make it worse.
They do have an algorithm.
And there is a negativity bias in
Yes.
conventional
there is.
editors and bettors.
It bleeds, it leads. It's not a new thing.
But in general, if you're presenting things that happen, there will be a bias toward the negative because good things are often things that don't happen. Like there hasn't been a war in Southeast Asia in 40 years. But there's never a Thursday in October in which that's a fact.
Right.
It's like not
right.
Not
it's
happening.
Slow moving, sure.
And a lot of improvements are incremental. There are a few percentage points a year, which then compound and add up. But again, there's never a day in which it makes a headline. So Max Roser points out that the papers could have had the headline, 137,000 people escaped from extreme poverty yesterday, every day for the last 30 years.
Wow.
But they never had that headline, and so 1 billion people escaped from extreme poverty, and no one knows about it. So there's just that bias in the nature of news, which feeds into one of the most powerful cognitive biases, the availability bias, which is that we estimate probability and risk and danger by how easily images come to mind. So you read about a shark attack and you don't get in the water, even though the much greater risk was driving to the beach. But it lodges in your mind, and that's what the news stokes, what it provides, images of things going wrong. But you know there's also an ideological reason why people are reluctant to acknowledge progress, both on the reactionary right that looks back to a golden age, that, make America great again, we're living in an era of American carnage, and the revolutionary left. The system is so evil and so unreformable that there's nothing to do but burn it down and expect that anything that rises out of the ashes is bound to be better. Now, both of those ideologies are kind of discomfited by evidence that bit by bit things can get better.
So people are not rational. I know that's a major theme of the book. Did they used to be more so?
Well, I'm always wary of saying something is bad now, therefore it's gotten worse. So often things were bad in the past too. The best explanation for the good old days is a bad memory. There are plenty of conspiracy theories, like the protocols of the Elders of Zion and the Illuminati. There's paranormal phenomena, we call them religious miracles. There's fake news, reports of religious miracles. The papers of 150 years ago were filled with stories of sea monsters and life on Mars and two-headed babies. So there's always an appetite for entertaining nonsense where you don't really try to get to the bottom of whether it happened or not.
So, what is the root of it? I mean, I know that there's a big difference between ignorant and stupid. Stupid means you can't learn because you're fucking stupid. but, but ignorant just means you're not aware of something.
Well, indeed.
I mean, and most of us are not aware. I mean, there's an infinite number of things you could know, and even the smartest people like you are only aware of a tiny bit of them. So we're all ignorant mostly.
That's right, and we have to rely on institutions and expertise. And if you distrust the standard sources of information, then you'll be open to all kinds of nonsense. None of us really knows enough atmospheric chemistry to be able to retrace the steps that lead to the conclusion of human-made climate change. We kind of trust the people in the white coats, and if you don't trust them, then you're naturally going to be open to alternative stories.
And speaking of climate change, I read there's in the paper this week, 4.7 million is where we've reached worldwide deaths from COVID in the last year. But pollution, 7 million. So even before COVID was in the air itself was killing more people. But that's to your point about it's a slow-moving disaster. There's no headline.
Indeed, and coal kills vastly more people than nuclear power, probably the safest form of energy ever invented.
Right.
But because there are gaudy disasters like Chernobyl and 3 Mile Island that lodge in the mind, people mistakenly think that nuclear is more dangerous than coal. But speaking to your point about stupidity versus ignorance, there's also bias, and there is a correlation between intelligence and being resistant to classic cognitive fallacies and biases, like the gambler's fallacy and the sunk cost fallacy and so on. They're not perfectly correlated. And there's some biases that have no correlation with intelligence, in particular the my side bias. Namely, you steer your reasoning toward the conclusion that you want to be true in the first place, and that's usually one of the sacred beliefs or talking points of your tribe, your clan, your political coalition, your sect. And that's one of the biases that smart people are as vulnerable as dumb.
Well, a smart people, when I made my movie Religulous, the beginning of it starts with me saying, I want to know how otherwise very intelligent people can wall off a part of their mind and believe in something which I think is intellectually embarrassing and obviously false. I know many people, very intelligent people, who've had an experience with what we would call a ghost. They're not religious people necessarily. They're not irrational people. They're very smart people, and I've never seen a ghost, but they have some testimony of something that happened. They saw furniture move. An odor and a whooshing went by. Some sort of thing which led them, these very rational people, to think, I don't know what it is, but there's a fucking ghost in the world. Well, what do you make of that?
Yeah.
When smart people...
It's an easy intuition to have, because all of us are dualists in the sense that we think people have a mind and a body, two different things. Because when we deal with each other, we don't treat each other like robots or wind-up dolls. We assume there's something going on inside the head, their beliefs, their desires, their feelings. From there, it's kind of a short step to imagine that the mind can exist independently of the body, because we already think of the mind as separate from the body. And there's even some experiences that make that plausible, like dreaming. Your body's in bed the whole time.
I said I wasn't asleep, I wasn't drunk. The chair went across the room. Well, what is that? Why would an otherwise rational person say that?
Well, if they had that experience with a spiritualist or medium, it's because they have.
No, they were just cleaning up late. They were just really. I don't know. I can't explain it either.
Yeah. There's a long tail of complex physical events where we don't know what happened, and it would be way too boring to try to find out.
Right.
But houses expand and contract, and there are sometimes earth tremors, and there are breezes through windows. Just like with unidentified flying objects. Yeah, they're unidentified. No one wants to go to the trouble of figuring out every last speck in the sky.
Right.
The fact that unidentified doesn't mean they're paranormal. It doesn't mean they're extraterrestrial.
Oh, exactly. Always great to see you, Doc. I'll see you in the next life.